It's the essence of Hawaii. PBS Hawaii, home is here.
Local broadcasts of KΑKOU are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo. And by Young Brothers, providing quality service you can count on, connecting our island communities for over 120 years as the state's leading inter-island freight transportation company. Tonight we will hear from caregivers, medical experts, and local families who share their stories and challenges as they navigate life while dealing with Alzheimer's. Be a part of the conversation as we explore the disease's impact on the community and how we can support each other. Coming up on KAKOU, Hawaii's Town Hall, the challenges of Alzheimer's.
Aloha and welcome to KAKOU, Hawaii's Town Hall, live from the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Multimedia Studio. I'm Yanji Denise. Hawaii residents have the highest life expectancy in the country. On average, we live past 80. With age can come wisdom and great joy, but increased age is also the most significant risk factor for Alzheimer's. The older we get, the more likely we are to develop the disease, and in our community, many already have. There are more than 31,000 people living with Alzheimer's across our state. For every person diagnosed, countless others are impacted. More than 60,000 unpaid family caregivers are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's. The value of that care tops $1.9 billion. These unpaid caregivers often face tremendous challenges, emotional, physical, and financial, navigating a system that can feel overwhelming and under-resourced. There is no cure for this disease, but what steps can we take to prevent it? What are the signs of Alzheimer's that we all need to look for? And once diagnosed, how can we best prepare for what we or our loved ones might need? That's what we're exploring tonight. KAKOU means all of us, as in we are all in this together. Alzheimer's touches families across Hawaii, regardless of background, and it will take our collective efforts to meet this challenge. We want to hear from you in our discussion. You can email or call in your questions. Due to today's weather, our phone lines have worked on and off, so if your call doesn't go through, try to email us or use social media, because we're also streaming live at pbshawaii.org and on our YouTube page. In our town hall, we have caregivers, patient advocates, doctors, and government leaders dedicated to the issue of Alzheimer's. So let's begin. And we want to start with Dr. Gina Fujikami, who specializes in geriatric medicine and works with Alzheimer's patients. Dr. Fujikami, let's start with the basics. What is Alzheimer's and how does it typically present?
Right, so Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. And we think of dementia as sort of this umbrella term that includes Alzheimer's, stroke-related dementia, among other more rare causes. But Alzheimer's is, again, the most common, so it typically happens more as we get older. Some of it can be genetic, but sometimes it just happens for no good reason at all. But there's still a lot that we're learning about.
And what is the typical trajectory of the disease?
So typically it happens more in our older population. It's more of a slowly progressive disease. But it sometimes, can last from 5 to 20 years. And so within that time, patients, start to lose their short-term memory, their long-term memory, and eventually their more physical functioning as well.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Let's move now to Dr. Kazuma Nakagawa, who is chief of the Neuroscience Institute at the Queens Medical Center and the co-founder of Brain Health Applied Research Institute, also called BHARI. Dr. Nakagawa, we know there is no cure, but what kind of medications or treatments are available for this illness to slow the progression of the disease?
Sure. There are some oral medication that we can take to slow the progression. There's actually a much more novel medication that came out recently in the market, which is a monoclonal antibody, which is an infusion treatment that you get that would actually go and attack the amyloid plaque. So amyloid is this toxic waste sort of plaque that the Alzheimer's disease make, and there's an infusion treatment that can go and sort of remove that plaque. So those two are available. Again, the oral medication that you take at the steady sort of level, and also sort of a monthly infusion. But only certain patients can actually qualify for that infusion treatment.
How common is it to be able to access those medications, and how effective are they?
So that IV medication is really new. So even at our institution, only a handful of patients actually qualified so far. But there are actually much more robust things that we can all do to prevent dementia, which is really lifestyle changes. And in my mind, that is a really more important things we can do in their middle age to prevent dementia, because about 40 to 50% of dementia could be potentially preventable.
40 to 50%. Well, we definitely want to get to that a little bit later tonight. Thank you for that. Let's move to LJ Duenas, the director of the Alzheimer's Association Aloha chapter. So LJ, we got that 31,000 figure from your organization, 31,000 patients here in Hawaii. Can you break down those numbers for us a little bit more? Tell us a little bit more about age and gender and what that typical patient profile looks like.
We do know that much of that information comes from Burfess report, which is a behavioral risk surveillance that is done by phone. What I can share is that probably 2/3 of that population are women. Women are at higher risk of dementia or Alzheimer's, maybe because women live longer. In terms of the breakup in age, I would say perhaps 80% of those in that population are over the age of 75.
Wow. Alzheimer's, of course, does affect people across our state. We're talking about rural communities on the neighbor islands as well. Dr. Victoria Haynes is a psychologist and the COO of the Hawaii Island Community Health Center, which provides care for nearly a quarter of the Big Island. The Big Island has more kupuna relative to their population than any other island. 25% of the population there over the age of 65. Victoria, Dr. Haynes, what are some of the challenges when it comes to Alzheimer's patients accessing care in rural communities like the ones you serve?
Right, yeah, thank you, Yunji. Access really is a major issue, and we talk a lot about access in healthcare in regards to access to medical providers, physicians, and specialists. But one thing to keep in mind that I think is often not recognized is access to just basic needs. Things like transportation, reliable public transportation, access to fresh food, access to sidewalks. Some of those social health factors that, can prevent the progression of disease, and really help our aging population, live a more fulfilled life. And so in rural communities, access to basic needs and healthcare really is a major issue that we recognize and try and address at the health center.
Yeah, and how do you think that impacts patient outcomes?
Well, one of the great things about being on Hawaii Island and other rural communities is the partnerships that we create. This idea that we have to come together to be innovative and be creative when it comes to meeting the needs of our patient population. But of course, the added stress to patients and to their caregivers to figure out things like how to get into town, that 2-hour drive, how to get the resources to pay for the gas, to get in to see your physician, that added stress really contributes to less than desirable outcomes. But again, it does create space for innovation and creativity in the community to try and meet those needs.
You mentioned caregivers, and they are such an important part of this conversation. There are two in our town hall tonight. We'll start over Zoom with Dr. Pokiʻi Balaz, who's a nurse practitioner, dementia advocate, and also a caregiver to her dad. Dr. Balaz, tell us a little bit about your dad and the kind of help that he needs from you.
Well, thank you, Angie. And it's nice to see so many of my colleagues. I wish I could be there with all of you. My father, to tell you a little bit about him. So my father currently is in the end stages of Alzheimer's. It's been a long journey, well over almost 2 decades now. But I think, the disease doesn't define him. He was more and still is more than the disease. My father, grew up, born and raised, did a lot in his past with the Hawaiian culture, in the work that he did, raising all of us and teaching us, all of us, my siblings and I, instilling values and morals in us that we all still live by today. So I want to remember him and just remind everybody that we talk about all these people living with the disease, but there's so much more than the disease. They are who they have always been, our loved ones, and will always continue to be. The help that my father needs from me now, coordination of services. So my journey as a caregiver started at home, then a caregiver out of Hawaii, a caregiver back in Hawaii, and again, I'm away from Hawaii in DC on a congressional fellowship. So a lot of it is right now coordinating of services, making sure that I keep up with everything he needs. I'm in touch with all of his providers, and all of the VA and everybody through email, through phone calls. When I'm there in person, life looks a lot like 24/7 needs that everything that he needs, from feeding him to turning him to range of motion to changing him to spending time with him, smiling with him, watching TV with him, taking moments where he can't really move and he can't move at all. So when he grabs my hand, when he moves a finger, when his eyes crinkle because he can't smile that much because of the strokes, you know, that's what life is like, that everything revolves around his needs. But it's been an honor and a privilege. I would do it again. But of course, caregivers, we need to also remember to take care of ourselves. And I think that's always the hard part, is remembering to take care of ourselves too, so we can continue to care.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that with us. Let's hear from another caregiver in our audience tonight. Jennifer Oyer is also with us. She is a caregiver to her mom. Jennifer, tell us about your mom and how your experience maybe mirrors that of Dr. Balaz or is different.
Well, my mom is at the very beginning stages of Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed in November of 2023. And it's been an interesting journey meeting with various doctors and kind of creating that team that she needs for support. And a lot of that support actually came from the Alzheimer's Association, so I'm so grateful for all of the information and resources that they provided for me and my family. But right now, my mom, she had started the infusion that Dr. Kaz talked about. She had started that in July. And actually just recently, as a family, we decided that we were going to take her off stop the infusions. And so she's just taking an oral medication right now. And we're really trying to just think of how she can live with the disease and naturally, you know, through diet, exercise, stimulation of activities. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, and how are you able to balance the care for yourself that Dr. Balaz just said, you know, the caregivers also need to care for oneself. How are you able to do that and also care for her?
Well, I'm really fortunate in the sense that I was able to stop working full-time and focus and spend more time with my mom, and which has been a blessing for me. But really, I think it's a team effort. So my dad, of course, pitches in, and he does a lot of the caregiving as well, and my brother. And so I have really leaned on other people, aunties, uncles, for support. And so anytime we need some respite time, we know who to call, and they come over and they help with meals. And yeah, it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah, community is such an important part of that. Let's hear more about the caregiving space from Kathy Wyatt, who's the president of the Hawaii Family Caregivers Coalition, also a registered nurse, and operates an adult daycare center in Aiea. You know, Kathy, in your work with caregivers, what are some of the biggest challenges that they face?
The biggest challenge is not knowing where to turn and not knowing that there are resources out for them. So I try my best to let them know what's available. But another challenge is that they don't know what's coming next. And you never will know what's coming next because everybody's individual and it just progresses. There's no, okay, tomorrow this is going to happen to mom, the day after that this is going to happen. It doesn't work that way. And I know you know that, right? They just are overwhelmed because they don't know what's going to happen. So education is really important for that.
Yeah, and especially, you know, what the doctor shared with us about the trajectory being 5 to 20 years. In that time frame, who knows what you need, right? Yeah. Let's turn to Todd Pang now. Some families, of course, do need live-in facilities to care for their loved one when they can't care for them at home. Todd operates Caring Manoa, an adult residential care home. He also created Kupuna Care Pair, which is an online platform that helps families connect with local care providers in Hawaii. You know, Todd, Kathy just shared about not knowing what resources out there for caregivers. I would imagine that if you're somebody who is trying to navigate the system of figuring out where to send a loved one, what is that landscape like? What does it look like for someone who's searching for live-in care?
It can be a really confusing process and a difficult process to find information. There's many different types of services available. They're like Kathy's daycare programs where somebody will go during the day and come home at night. Caring Manoa, my facility, and all care homes are 24-hour-a-day service. There's also nursing facilities that are a little bit inherently more kind of clinical. And then there's assisted living, independent living facilities where the retirees and people who need some light help can live and still socialize. But each type of place has a distinct pro and con to it. And so I think when I run into families, oftentimes they're looking for care in a hurry, which is unfortunate because it's difficult to find that information to prepare. And also they may just be burned out trying to be the caregiver for their loved one and manage all of those needs at home without being able to rely on somebody to help navigate or whatnot. So I find there's a lot of stress involved, which is so common, and caregiver burnout is such a real thing. I commend the other participants for being so dedicated to their loved ones. And what I'm hearing from Jennifer, of quitting a job to be a full-time caregiver is so common, as you pointed out with the statistic. But it's a challenging, difficult landscape of finding information and knowing who to turn to. And within my care home, that's usually at the point where people have already become resigned that it's not possible for them to stay at home anymore.
And typically, what does that cost? I know that you outlined a bunch of different options from adult daycare all the way to full service live-in facilities. But generally speaking, what is the ballpark? What does that cost a family?
Yeah, so I mean, there's two methods of paying for it. There's private pay, and then there's relying on a state program like Medicaid. And so, if it's a private pay facility and for somebody who may need like 24-hour-a-day supervision in a care home, say, depending on the location and various factors, it could be as low, I'd say, as maybe $5,000 a month, all the way to the sky's the limit. And so it's really difficult for families to swallow that cost or be able to even pony up the money for it. And it's so important for them to be strategic about how to spend this money because, like Dr. Fujikami was saying, we don't know how long this will last. And that's always a conversation I have with families when they're trying to prepare, is to really be able to identify the different priorities that they need to focus on.
Wow, yeah, I mean, those costs are pretty daunting for a lot of folks. Tani Salazar is the State Dementia Services Coordinator through the Department of Health. So Tani, for people who cannot afford the kind of care that Todd is talking about, even $5,000 to sky's the limit per month is out of reach for many families here in Hawaii. What kind of a safety net is there? What are the options?
Thank you for that question. I think it's so important for people to know that there are resources out there, whether it's applying for MedQuest, like Todd had mentioned, or going to the area agencies on aging in each county to access services through the Kupuna Care Program, and also to access services through the many local nonprofits in the state who offer such great services to our Kupuna.
Kealii Lopez is the director of AARP Hawaii. Kealii, how are we doing here in Hawaii when it comes to supporting patients and caregivers? I know that AARP Hawaii is part of a very large network of AARPs across the country. Where do we rank in terms of how well we support these folks, and what could we do better?
I was hoping you were going to give me an easy question. The truth of the matter is the beautiful thing for Hawaii is that we're very family oriented. Todd talked about people being cared for in the facilities. A large number of kupuna are cared for at in their homes. My mother had vascular dementia for 5 years. She was able to age in place, in her own home, in a surrounding that she was familiar with her loved ones caring for her. Not everyone has that opportunity. So I'd say, from the community's perspective, for the people here and everyone who's caring for their loved ones, we're doing really well. As it relates to government support for that care, I'd say, we're not doing as well as I think Hawaii would like to be known for, and for what we can do. And a big part of that, so I'm going to do a plug, AARP and a lot of other organizations are trying to get the state legislature to do more for family caregivers. And that includes things like paid family leave, so you don't have to leave your job to care for a loved one. And another one is a caregiver tax credit, where if you are caring for a loved one in their home, you're still paying a lot out of your own pocket for, things like getting the wheelchair, pads, different types of things you've got to take care of. And so most people on average spend about $7,000 of their own funds caring for a loved one. So we're looking at a tax credit there. There's just really so much more that can be done. And I appreciated Kathy's point about people don't know where to go. And that's a government opportunity with our area agencies on aging. I think there's more resources. It's kind of a catch-22, so I hope we're going to explore some of that this evening.
Yeah. I want to get back to Dr. Nakagawa and one thing that you had shared earlier about this prevention piece and things that we can do early on. Tell us a little bit more about that. What are the steps that we can take now to help ourselves and perhaps our loved ones down the road?
Sure. We've learned a lot about dementia more recently. In the past, we thought that dementia is one of those disease where it's sort of like bad luck. We couldn't do anything about it. But now the science of vascular health, so blood vessel health in the brain, and dementia are merging. So we're learning that everything that we do for the heart, stroke prevention, so lowering your blood pressure, exercise, healthy diet, sleep, and so on, and then lowering your cholesterol, diabetes, that has been linked to lower risk of dementia and stroke. And then we're part of the Global Brain Care Coalition that's stood up by the Harvard Medical School Mass General Hospital Group, and now it's global now, and we're one of the sites. And they developed a score called Brain Care Score, and that has all the components that I just mentioned, like blood pressure, exercise, lack of smoking, alcohol, all the things that we typically talk about for cardiovascular health, and that's been linked now. And in fact, exercise is probably the most powerful way to keep your brain healthy. Now, I'm not saying that we have a cure for dementia or Alzheimer's, but exercise promotes neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is our ability for our brain to change and rewire. Really, our brain neurons can extend dendrites, which are all these roots and tentacles and branches that can form and make a new connection, and then that's how we create new memory or keep the memory. How do we do that? How do we keep that neuroplasticity? We need what I call a brain fertilizer. It's called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's a long name, but it's really like a brain fertilizer. With that, the neurons actually sprout out a lot faster, more robust, and make new connections. And how do you get that BDNF? I mean, don't we all want that substance? You don't buy it. It's by exercise. When we exercise, there are 3 ways that we actually pump that BDNF. One, through a neurotransmitter, a lot of the catecholamine excitement. The other one's a blood flow to the brain that actually turns on the gene as well for the BDNF. The last thing, I'm going to try to wrap up, is our muscles. When we exercise, our muscles create hormones that boost the BDNF. And the last hormone is called irisin. Irisin is a hormone that our muscles, again, our thighs, biceps make, that goes into the brain and helps clear the amyloid plaque. The amyloid plaque is the Alzheimer's plaque that we're all afraid of and we're trying to get rid of with a medication. But irisin, the muscle hormone, helps cleave it, chop it up, and break it up. Okay. And that's sort of like one of the glimpses of like science behind the lifestyle medicine. And that's why 40 to 50% of the dementia is from a sort of a epidemiological sort of study have shown that could potentially be prevented through doing all the lifestyle changes.
And Dr. Haynes, I mean, that really goes back to the work that you're doing at the health center. You're talking about what Dr. Nakagawa is talking about is pretty basic health care, right? And so that makes another argument for why we need more access to health care in communities like Big Island and beyond.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, this idea of moving upstream, right, and meeting patients where they're at. Reinforcing healthy behaviors and pro-social behaviors, prevention, and addressing the social health needs in our community is so important to whole person care. And making connection with folks, addressing things like loneliness and isolation and some of the factors that really became so prominent during and after COVID. Those types of things, we need to ask those questions, right? We need to do the screening. We need to kind of understand where people are at and meet them where they're at. find out what they need, and then wrap around patients. And at the health center, you know, we understand it's not just what happens in the visit. You know, we need to know what's happening at home. We need to know what's happening with the family unit and the social health of the individual, and either connect them with the resources in the community that they need, or you know, try and help meet those needs.
I want to get to some of the questions that we're getting in from the audience now, and thank you to those of you who are calling in and emailing. And Dr. Fujikami, this one is for you. How do you differentiate forgetfulness that comes naturally with age and signs of dementia?
It's a good question, because I know traditionally, you know, when I was growing up, my grandmother had 12 siblings, and we thought, you know, back then that, you know, senility was just a normal part of aging. It's like they're just getting old, you know, they're misplacing their glasses, it's on their head. But, you know, what we're finding is that memory issues is not a normal part of aging. It might take us a little longer to remember things and learn new things, but it's not a normal part of aging. So if a loved one is experiencing forgetfulness that is not their normal baseline, that is something that should be addressed by their primary care, they should address to their primary care physician, or the concerned family should bring it up to seek medical attention to really figure out, yeah, is there something like dementia going on, or it could be from other things like lack of sleep, depression, medication side effects. There are a lot of things that can affect forgetfulness too, and memory.
We have some questions for our caregivers, so let's start with Jennifer and then go to Dr. Balaz. When it comes to being a caregiver for someone with Alzheimer's, what is something you wish you knew? What's your biggest advice? Jennifer, we'll start with you.
I would say that I wish I knew earlier that I needed to be the advocate and the voice for my mom. So, meaning that I needed to be responsible to do all the research and make sure that that we were meeting with various doctors before we actually settled on one. We didn't do that. I was just so focused on getting her treatment and not thinking through, you know, is this actually good for her? Are infusions good for her? Do we also need to see a dietitian? You know, all of these things play a big role in Alzheimer's. And I think that's one of the things that I wish I knew earlier was make sure that, you know, take some time to learn the landscape first as much as you can so that you're better prepared when you talk to physicians and go and see different doctors.
Yeah, that is great advice. Let's go now to Dr. Balaz, who's joining us via Zoom. Dr. Balaz, what is your best advice to someone who is starting their caregiving journey?
Oh, I think a lot of great pieces have come out today, and I think all my colleagues. When I started on this journey, we didn't have this big boom like we're having nowadays with all these conversations and talking and NIH funding. It took 2 years for my father to get his VHA and VBA benefits. It took almost that same amount of time for his PCP to even give a diagnosis. And when I started doing more than clinical care and going into the community, I just didn't want people to have to go through what I went through when you feel so lost and you don't know what to do. Well, medicine prepared me for the disease. It in no way prepared me to be a caregiver. So I think that what I would say is, you know, to the resources and to find your community. Like my colleagues are all sitting there. They're the ones that I get to call and talk to when I'm down, when I'm up, when I need something, when I need to understand something. LJ and Tani and Kathy and Kealii and everybody up there, you know, we build a community, and that's what we should be building, is a community together to support each other, where we know who to call, where we can hang on to each other. And for caregivers too, you know, some of the docs brought up good points, and we talk about lifestyle changes for caregivers who have no time, you know, left in their day. I would have to tell my patients sometimes, you know, exercising doesn't mean you have to go out 5 days a week for 30 minutes. Like my mother, I buy her the pedals so that when she watches her favorite shows, she can pedal along and she can still exercise. You know, like finding things for them to do at their own pace in a room for all of us caregivers so that we can still do it and we can meet what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And sometimes I also have to let caregivers know that you really want to go in for the diagnosis because Alzheimer's is such a hot topic. Like my father is hard of hearing. a lot of my patients would come in and their families thought that they had Alzheimer's and sometimes they did. Sometimes they just needed a hearing screen. They just couldn't hear. And so, there are a lot of things that are come into play. So, knowing your resources, building your community, knowing where to find the information and holding on to that and to do your research. But time is so limited with us caregivers. There's so much happening for us in the day. Like the storm is coming. I spent more than half of my day texting with my team, as Jennifer brought up back home. And thanks, Mom. Hi, everybody. I know you guys are watching. John, Hopeel. And, trying to set up the house, make sure my father's oxygen tank works. What happens if the electricity goes out tonight? How is his bed going to move? So there's just so much happening. There's just so much to do.
Yeah, thank you. LJ, let's talk a little bit about the stigma around Alzheimer's and why some patients might be reluctant to admit that they're having difficulties. How do you help to eradicate some of that so that people can get diagnosis and treatment early as possible?
Well, I think, well, thank you again. Thank you for that question. One, people think that Alzheimer's is an age-related disease, and more people of a certain age or above a certain age have Alzheimer's, but so do people having diabetes or other chronic diseases. So having people understand that it is a chronic disease and it's a brain disease. And so making sure that people understand what Alzheimer's disease is. I think, talking about Alzheimer's like we talk about diabetes and heart disease is important to remove some of that stigma.
There's a question here from Sarah and Nu'uanu and Todd. I'm hoping that you can take this one. Could the panel talk about paid respite care services for family caregivers that are not working? In other words, are there bad players in this industry? As a family member, if you're going out to find these services, how do you, screen for folks and how do you know that you are a right fit? Because I would imagine, with your work with Kupuna Care Pair, obviously you know the landscape, but you did mention that oftentimes people come to you and they're desperate, right? And they just want somebody to help. So how do you properly screen for services?
That's a really, really important question. And I think that there is, luckily, the State Department of Health, Office of Healthcare Assurance is creating more processes for in-home caregivers. They've recently created a separate license for home care agencies so that all people who come into the home, need to be working with an agency that's licensed. Of course, I could go out on Facebook or on care.com and find an individual and rely on whatever screening processes they have. But generally speaking, I find that it's almost like dating. Even if they're not bad players, it still could be a poor fit. Mm-hmm. And as it relates to Alzheimer's specifically, it's a very a distinct set of skills that a caregiver needs to have to work with somebody who has memory loss or who cognitively can't understand things, as well as a retiree or somebody who cognitively is very sharp and intact, but physically needs a lot of care. Mm-hmm. So even, generally speaking, a lot of the quote-unquote bad players would be usually somebody direct, like if I'm going to Craigslist to find a caregiver. But not to say that there are many of them, but even if I meet somebody from Craigslist or go through an agency, talking to them about their skill set and talking to them about what they would do for my mom who might be mistaking the the stove for the bathtub or whatever it could be is an important process. It takes time to prepare that relationship.
Yeah, Kealii, I know you'd like to
I just would want to add, because that's great. The other is references, just as you would for a lot of other things, is find out from that provider who else, or find out from your family members what their experience might have been. I think using whatever network that's out there is important. Having that respite assistance, though, I think is very important for family caregivers. Being able to have time where you're able to go out for an evening with your spouse or partner and have your parent being cared for. It's not like you're abandoning them. You're building up your own battery. And so the other thing I would say is that, so getting the respite care, absolutely do that. Kathy could tell you a whole lot about that. but getting help so that you can make sure you take care of yourself. Because if you're really burnt out, the experience I have, for example, with caring for my mom and someone who helped us care for her, was this woman was someone who could deal with mom being very unpleasant and rude and nasty at times, because she, you know, one, she lived her life, but she hadn't gotten to a point where what she could tolerate, you know, went from here to here. And that person was able to do it. She'd always tell us, oh gosh, I've had worse. You know, we're like, oh my God, we're mortified. So finding that fit, I think, is important. And then the only other thing I would add is, you know, sometimes when you're like raising your child, you put them in timeout. Sometimes for caregivers, we have to give ourselves a timeout where we're like just at our wits' end. I just can't deal with mom. I'm gonna go, she's in the bed, she's not going anywhere. I'm gonna go and take a breather and just collect myself so I can be the best I can be for her.
Yeah, there is that emotional toll. And Kathy, I would love for you to take Mike's question from Makiki. Thanks for writing in. Mike says, what's the highest cost you've encountered for adult care? I think that a lot of folks are wondering, you know, what is the scale? How do I save for this? How do I prepare for this financially? And what kind of a cost am I facing? If it's not the full live-in services that Todd's talking about, but something kind of in between, what are we talking about?
That's one of my favorite topics. Because I have adult daycare. Adult daycare is the first rung on the ladder of long-term care continuum. It's the least expensive. It's about, I'd say, a third of the cost of assisted living. Of home care. And, you know, it exponentially less than the institutionalized facilities. Adult daycare can be maybe $1,900 a month, whereas a care home is, like you said, what, $5,000 is low, so it's quite economical. But and the other thing is, pretty soon it's predicted that we're going to be out of skilled beds and care home beds. There's not going to be any place for people to go that need a bed. So people keeping their families at home bring them to adult daycare to keep them stimulated and socialized and slow the progression of the disease and give the families respite. So we're going to be part of that taking care of business when we don't have any beds for people that need them.
Wow, okay. Let's go to you now, Tani. What resources, this is a question that came in, what resources are out there for someone who has no family or friend support when it comes to dealing with these challenges? We've heard a lot tonight about the importance of community and family, but what if you never had kids and you happen to live alone?
That's a good question. More and more as time progresses and our societal culture changes, we have more people who are living alone with dementia, and it's important to access resources in the community, whether it be, again, going to the local area agencies on aging, again, those nonprofits who can offer support. I know a lot of the home care agencies have been such a godsend for our family too, when my grandparents had different forms of dementia. And when you're living alone too, I think it's important to also access our neighbors. We might not have familial or blood-related family, but in Hawaii we have a lot of chosen family and that ohana that we can rally around to create that care team too. Some of my past patients, their neighbors were such a huge support. So I think it's being creative and looking around all over to create that care team.
Yeah, and Dr. Haynes, can you build on that, especially for folks who live in rural communities? I know that you're representing Hawaii Island tonight, but you know, we have, of course, people on Kauai, Lanai, Molokai. I mean, thinking about the healthcare services that are there. Tell us about the importance of community beyond the healthcare setting for these kinds of patients.
You know, community can mean a lot of different things, and if you don't know where to start, you know, asking your doctor or the nurse that you have a relationship with is the right place to go. And, you know, because that care team, that wraparound service is just so critically important. And, you know, we have an amazing team of community health educators, you know, dietitian, patient navigators that are connected into the resources in the community. And, you know, maybe it's something formal in a nonprofit agency, but maybe it's a walking group, right? Maybe it's you know, a cooking class or something that exists that you wouldn't think is traditionally kind of needed for the individual. But the network and just asking the question, and if you don't know where to start, your doctor's office is a really good place to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I love your point about the cooking class or something kind of non-traditional and creative. Dr. Nakagawa, I'd love to ask you this question, and Dr. Fujikami, if you could build on this. From Claude via email, do activities like performing music or studying another language help? You talk about exercise. A lot of people were really into Sudoku for a minute, maybe they still are.
Yes.
And thinking that, exercising your brain through crosswords or other sort of brain busters would be helpful. Does that actually work?
Yes. So again, going back to the concept of neuroplasticity, right? To keep our brain cells more active and sprouting, that needs challenge. That means new stimulation, something novel, where you try to acquire a new skill, new language, anything, and you make mistakes, and you want to have that intentional feeling of like, I made a mistake, I gotta fix it. And that process keeps your brain more active. So yes, like puzzles, learning new language, music, any kind of analytical things, or creative art. That's a great one that I really endorse. Art workshop, printmaking, coloring books. So all those things actually activate different parts of the brain. And why I really like art is because you don't have to rely on memory. You don't have to work, you don't have to have a concentration or attention span. You can really be like intrinsically sort of like innate. It's very emotional, and that can just come out. And at that moment, sometimes like they just lighten up. And then it doesn't require verbal communication. It doesn't require memory. And it's a great way for people to bond through like visual expression of themselves.
Dr. Fujikami, can you build on that and also add in the aspect of diet? Because I'm interested to know about how what you eat can play a role in this as well.
Yeah, also to go off of Kaz's advice as well, I think a lot of the activities, what I counsel my patients is it has to be something that they'll be interested in doing too. So thinking outside the box too about like the cooking class, like that was mentioned, that also has the benefit of socialization too, which we know is very important for brain health. And then music, going back to that, there's a lot of research done on the benefits, the mental benefits of music. There's this great video out there of this gentleman, I think in New York, in a care home where he didn't talk, he had dementia. But once his favorite, 60s music was played through the AirPods back then, he just comes to life and he starts talking and verbalizing. So music is a very important part. And going along with diet, it was mentioned that what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And so I agree with Dr. Nakagawa. I think you just have to have a well-balanced diet, low fat, lots of, not as much red meat, kind of more like the Mediterranean diet is something what I counsel my patients on.
Okay.
And if I could add to that,
please, yes.
I think it's so important that we engage our brain, like was said, and also get good nutrition. And something that I didn't know before was that it's important for our brains to be active, but it's also important for us to get restorative sleep at nighttime. Yes. When we sleep, it's like that cleaning cycle for our brains where our blood can go to the brain and kind of wash out those amyloid tangles and plaques that are associated with Alzheimer's disease. So important to engage your brain, but also important to get good sleep.
LJ, we've heard again and again from the panel tonight about how this is not just something that's restricted to the elderly. Of course, age is, a factor, but not the only one. How early should we start thinking about this? Given we've heard talk of the silver tsunami, we know that we are, have one of the oldest populations in the country, but when do we start planning and having these conversations?
Well, I think if you or someone in your family experiences cognitive concerns, when I think about Alzheimer's, I think about it being the inability to recall things, and so that's typically what is experienced by people who have concerns about their cognitive health. They're asking the same questions all the time or over and over again. So I think it's talking to your doctor when you have those concerns. And you are right, there are younger people that have Alzheimer's disease, younger onset Alzheimer's disease that is a bit more progressive than the typical Alzheimer's disease that most patients have. I know that in the state, in Kailua Kona, the youngest person that we were providing services for was a 39-year-old male, so very young.
Wow, that is unexpected. And Todd, a similar question for families who have someone in their that they're caring for at home that is in the early stages of Alzheimer's. How early do they need to start thinking about the longer term? You know, if what Kathy's saying is true about the potential lack of places to go, how early do I get on a list, and you know, how does that work?
I think getting on the list is maybe not the immediate concern. I think more it's about looking at what might be the progression, you know, learning more about the disease itself, and then also looking at what services, you know, there are in the community is going to be the next step to say, okay, if it's no longer feasible for me to stay at home or for my loved one to stay at home, where can I turn to? I also think that, like, for families, you know, they're just oftentimes reinventing the wheel. You know, there's so many resources and knowledge bases out there in Alzheimer's, and so knowing who to turn to, like, you know, Tani mentions all of the community organizations, which there are many, to be able to, you know, learn from what other people's experiences are is hugely important. So, like, you know, Dr. Balaz and Jennifer and everyone else was talking about community. Part of that is you know, like, talking to other family members who are going through the same thing. And Alzheimer's Association has workshops in this. There's other community groups that do as well. And I think, you know, not only are we not alone in terms of thinking about the boxes to check off in terms of the care, but what other people have gone through and what's worked with them is a good resource.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, one of the things to think about, thinking about what LJ had shared, is, you know, having that that simple conversation with your doc, your provider, and just mentioning, you know, there's very quick screening instruments that we can do, you know, in the office to track, you know, your memory function over time. So, you know, if there's a question, you know, just say something. We need to start talking about this and developing that relationship with our docs. And those screening tools, you know, can track that over time. If you have questionable, you know, symptoms possibly in your, you know, late 40s, early 50s, you know, it's something that we can keep an eye on and help, you know, rule out other conditions if they exist.
Yanji, the thing I would add to your question of when should we start thinking about it, it's now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because as Dr. Kaz was talking about the health issues, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is something I absolutely have to focus on for myself. So I think recognizing that when I refer to now, and I'm sure he'd love this, is the issue of what do we do now first to prevent it, right? So the best thing we can do for our family, everyone, for when we age, is to take care of ourselves now, so that it's not so much of a challenge for our loved ones when we get older. The other piece I would just add is LJ's point about planning. The truth of the matter is now is also the time to plan. If we're lucky, we all will need care. We'll need some kind of care, whether it's Alzheimer's or something else. If we live long enough, we'll need care. So having that discussion now with your family about what's that going to look like. It's quite hard to visualize or see, but there's probably lots of different TV shows or shows out there that have you be able to see what it's like when someone has advanced Alzheimer's and what those challenges are. And sit with your family and watch that and talk about that afterwards and say, gosh, okay, how are we going to deal with that? Mom, when you can no longer think about that, who's going to be the person you want in charge of your finances? Who are you going to want to be in charge of your health directives? You know, so my thing is now.
Yeah, and those are tough conversations to have. I mean, Jennifer, I would love to hear from your direct experience about how you navigated that.
When my mom was first diagnosed, I remember the physician telling us, you should have brought her in 5 years ago. And that was, it gutted me because I thought, yeah, I think I was seeing signs back then, forgetfulness and, you know, but I just brushed it off as old age, or she was just getting older. But really that was signs of Alzheimer's. And so one of the first things I did was I called the Alzheimer's Association asking for resources, and they they directed me and said, you should see an attorney, plan for, see an estate attorney, get your mom's affairs in order. And so that was the best piece of advice that our family received. And after her diagnosis, that's what we did. We saw an attorney.
Let's go to Dr. Balaz over YouTube, over Zoom now and hear from her experience. Dr. Balaz, what can you share with us about that process as well and those conversations that you had on the early side of the diagnosis?
Having conversations with family, I think that's individualized too. Like I tell a lot of my patients and families, you have to do it at the pace when people are ready. Sometimes the person living with the disease can be in denial. Sometimes the caregivers are in denial. A lot of cultures make difference too, right? My culture, I'm Native Hawaiian. A lot of Native Hawaiians don't see themselves as caregivers. It's built into our culture. So the language we're using, the words we're using, the belief system. And so did we have those conversations with my father? My father swept through the middle stages very, very fast. It came and it went, and we didn't get to have all that. Thankfully, he and my mother had those conversations. So when we went through what happened with my father, then I started having those conversations with my mother. My mother did make all of her decisions. I've made those decisions also for myself. And so I think that you'll hear a lot, like having those conversations early will help a lot to understand for planning. But you also have to do it when people are ready, meet them where they are, and take a little, take some time. Going to somebody who specializes in elder law is very, very helpful. And I also want to remind everyone, though, we talk about this disease always in the context of the challenges and how bad it is. There is so much life left in Alzheimer's, the people living with the disease and all of us caregivers. Don't forget to live and enjoy the happy moments, the small moments, the joys, the conversations you can still have with the person until they become nonverbal. There is much more to this disease than only all of the challenges. But of course, take the moments you need to do. Like Kealii said, take a time out, cry. The grief cycle continues over and over and over every time you lose a little bit more of that person. But just don't forget that there is so much more. And then the last thing I'll end with, and I apologize for taking so much of your time, is to look at it from the perspective of the person living with the disease. Many times we react because of what makes sense to us, but they live in another reality, step into theirs. And for a lot of things, people talk about bathing, especially in nursing homes. And I always use this example. If you saw a stranger coming at you trying to take off your clothes, what would you do? They're not non-compliant. They don't have behavioral issues. They are just reacting to the reality that's in front of them. And any of us would react the same way by pushing, kicking, or trying to get someone off. So I will end there, but for everybody, just please don't forget to live also.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to say. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. First of all, when you said that your doctor said you should have brought her in 5 years ago, that made me so angry. That made me so angry. How did you feel when he said that to you? Guilty?
Very guilty.
Okay. That was, I can't even go any further with that because it just made me so angry. You are human, okay? And I try to tell caregivers all the time, you're not making mistakes. You're learning as you go along. That's right. Because there's no way you can know everything up front. So for him to tell you should have brought her in 5 years, what was the point for him to say that? And I'm not the only one that had the reaction that I'm having right now. I'm looking around the room. Anyway, I'm sorry he did that to you. But don't feel guilty anymore. You have permission not to feel guilty.
That's right. We do what we can with what we know, and we keep learning day by day.
And if I may add, I think we are getting better. We are raising more awareness about this disease. We're fortunate that the state is supporting a public health awareness campaign that will really focus on early detection, because that's key. Well, prevention is key, but there's therapies in the market that Dr. Kaz had mentioned that can potentially slow this disease for people that are eligible to get on these new therapies. That's available right here in Hawaii. It's not a cure, far from it, but the science is working for some people that could benefit from it. And we know that we are leading in that right direction, right? So think of pre-diabetes and how you can take certain medications to prevent, the onset or, delaying the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes perhaps. In this case, we can remove amyloid plaques, which is a marker for Alzheimer's disease, pretty effectively with some of those drugs. So early screening is important because you can potentially slow down the disease.
Mm-hmm. And the reality is mom probably was seen 5 years ago and probably was keeping up with her care, and were the right questions being asked, and were those annual wellness visits really maximized by the provider and the care team, where you're taking that data and really kind of owning that care for the individual. Right?
If I can add something just to follow what she had mentioned, we are going in front of the legislature this year to work on just that. Is we want to require that patients who go in for their annual wellness visit, so these are Medicare patients, that providers use standardized FDA tools. Right now, observation is a screening tool under Medicare guidelines, and so we'd like to change that this year.
Wow, and let's hear from Dr. Fujikami. There was a question that came in here. We've heard a lot about getting a diagnosis, but what is the testing process for an Alzheimer's diagnosis?
Right, so technically it's short-term memory problems that affect your ability to take care of yourself, your day-to-day functioning, like taking your medicines, driving. Particularly with Alzheimer's, again, it is the amyloid and tau protein tangles that are the hallmark of the disease. Before, it used to be we couldn't diagnose it until autopsy. So until we actually took pieces of the brain and looked for the tau and amyloid proteins, that's how we used to diagnose. But now, it is an exciting time, like Dr. Nakagawa mentioned. There are some blood tests looking for these protein levels. There's spinal fluid that we can take out. There's special amyloid PET scans also that can help us providers to help try to diagnose the Alzheimer's disease. So a lot of it is still in research phases. A lot of it is still expensive. So I think, but there's a lot coming out that we have a lot more tools now to diagnose this disease more accurately.
Yeah, and I want to go to Dr. Nakagawa really quickly just to ask about what kind of a difference that early diagnosis can make for a patient.
I think that gives them the opportunity to potentially start the medication and treatment early. And certain infusion medication, you have to have that definitive diagnosis at the early phase. And if they're not in that early phase, they don't qualify. So that's the biggest reason. And that amyloid PET scan, currently, we don't have that here in Hawaii, but we will be getting that, and it'll be up and running this year.
Okay, well, that's encouraging. Yeah. There's a question from Lance on YouTube. I'd love some of the, for Todd, but I want to start with Kealii to answer this one because you did reference this for your own family. Lance wants to know, what are some ways to deal with aggressive dementia? Sometimes it gets frustrating trying to care for them. When people are not themselves and they are reacting in the way that you were describing, what can a caregiver do?
So I think Dr. Pokiʻi Balaz had a good way of putting that, which is oftentimes when we would have those interactions that maybe weren't what we remember of mom, was to say that that was the disease and not mom, right? So I think the degree to which that's possible. If they're being very physically, we didn't have that situation, but I do know that some folks can have folks who are very physically demonstrative about how agitated they are, is recognizing that. I think the more you can learn about the different stages and what those people are going through. So when they're agitated, what are some of the triggers that cause that? Like for us, we knew that our mom didn't like clutter. Believe me, we had to clean out the closet like every week. It was like, okay, Mom, we already moved that. Yes, take it all out. Guess what we did? We took it all out, put it all back in there again, because you know what? It made her happy. So I think it's going to vary depending on the severity of it. So I can't speak to it from a medical perspective, but for us, it was frequently stopping to remember that it was the disease and not mom. And that kind of helps because it's hard when, when your parent says something to you that's not really very pleasant, it's hard and it hurts because this is the mom who loves you. is saying things that you know that are hurtful to you. Is to try really hard to not let that be a personal affront to you, but to recognize that that's the disease and not the person. That's the one thing I would say.
Yeah.
Others might have better.
And Todd, can you build on that, and also bringing in what Dr. Balaz was sharing about those moments of light, and how you try to create those for patients as well, so that the families that that are visiting your facility, for instance, can have that connection and can see their loved ones as they know them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this question because it's really important. I mean, I always say it's much harder for family caregivers than it is for professional caregivers like ourselves. We don't have all of those decades of personal connection and knowing our residents as family members did, and what they were, and now the behaviors that they're trying to deal with. Going back to the question itself, generally dementia care experts will say that behaviors are a form of communication and some sort of unmet need that is they're not able to verbalize. So it could be hunger, it could be pain, it could be fatigue. There's a lot of different things that may result in somebody acting aggressively, or even just being a little bit agitated. I don't like the closet being messy. And if we're not knowing that earlier on, for professional caregivers, if we don't know that about a person early on from the family, it's a little bit harder to really work with. But family members play a crucial role to take off the caregiver hat, which so many are trying to do, and just purely wear the hat of their loved ones. And knowing that personal history of what mom or dad or my spouse liked when they were not living through this disease. I also think that there's a whole body of knowledge out there in terms of best practices, non-medical, interventions, and even sort of preemptive things that people at home and in a facility setting can do to minimize aggressive, behaviors, minimizing fatigue, for instance, or knowing the signs of when somebody is kind of becoming a little bit tired and maybe they should take a break, or maybe they're getting dehydrated and they haven't had a snack in a while. So there's so many dementia care experts, generally like gerontologists, who are not medical providers, but rather people who work with seniors in the field. And I implore families to even just do a simple Google search, or on YouTube. There's so many gerontologists that have videos about how best to address somebody's behavior, or even just setting up a schedule throughout the day of what is it that mom and dad are going to do, because sometimes aggressive behaviors or difficult behaviors are simply a matter of boredom. That my loved one is just in front of the TV all day, and now they're feeling kind of unsettled because they don't know what they've been doing. And for families to kind of figure that out without the assistance of some experts can be a challenge.
Yeah, and Kathy, I want to get to you with this question.
Wait, can I answer?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
What we do when we're teaching caregivers to deal with behaviors and stuff like that is, first of all, don't argue with them, and don't react, okay? The second thing is try to think of something, or distract them. Like take them to the laundry room and give them a tub of towels to fold for you. Just get their mind off of what they were doing, distract them. But I have a great story about this woman who was taking care of her mom. And for the longest time, at 4 o'clock every afternoon, her mom would just go berserk. She's like, I gotta go home, I gotta go home. And she was home. It finally dawned on the daughter that her mom had been a teacher for 34 years, and at 4 o'clock was quitting time to go home. So she started putting her in the car at 4 o'clock, driving around the block, bringing her home, and she was just happy as a clam. So it's just, there's triggers that can cause it as well. So
I mean, what you're talking about is really being attuned to your loved one, or the person, if you're not related to that person, to the person you're caring for.
But don't react, just don't react.
There's a caller here who wants to know, getting access to physicians can take a long time. And Kathy, I want you to take this one. While waiting for that access, do you recommend a website, a phone number, or a specific organization to get started? I care for a young child and my mother, and it's hard to know where to begin when it comes to her care. And, this caller brings up a good point, not just about about the resources, and we do have a resource page on our website with the organizations that are represented here tonight, so we have all of that for you on pbshawaii.org. But the second part of her question I find particularly compelling, this idea that there are, the sandwich generation that we talk about, people who are caring for kids and also caring for their aging parents. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I want to talk about the resource thing. The Elder Affairs Division, and I don't have their phone number, I'm sorry, has this wonderful booklet. It's about this thick and has hundreds of resources for caregivers. And I recommend you call the Elder Affairs Division and ask for that booklet. And we all know what it looks like. It's amazing. It talks about home care. It talks about transportation. It talks about meals. It talks about just about anything you need.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, but yeah, the sandwich generation is becoming quite prevalent in the community.
Dr. Nakagawa, can you? Oh, please go ahead.
Kealii, although I think
Kealii.
Todd is a good resource. No, I'm wondering, LJ, is there, so like AARP for our caregivers, we have a caregivers Facebook group where people who are caregivers get on and ask each other questions and, share their ideas and strategies that, they've used for caregivers. Is there one for Alzheimer's?
We do, and we also have a 24/7 helpline
There you go.
That is available to anyone who needs assistance. I'm not sure if anyone here has accessed the 24/7 helpline.
So kind of like a crisis hotline?
Kind of like the crisis hotline.
Checking.
And we actually have someone here in Hawaii who is staffing that is a staff for the 24/7 helpline.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they may get, a staff from Hawaii.
Wow.
We also have wonderful support groups too, where you can learn from fellow caregivers about what's working for them, and that can really help in that journey, especially while you're waiting for a doctor's appointment.
Yes. Dr. Nakagawa, there's a question here. Is there a connection between mental health, for example, depression and anxiety, and the development of Alzheimer's? How much of the difficulties that we have early in life can then be reflected in this disease?
Yeah, I think there's some literature out there linking that existence of mental health is a risk factor for future dementia, but it's not one of those strongly correlated sort of a paper. But some of the mental health, such as depression and anxiety, can manifest as sort of a pseudo-dementia, so they can look like dementia, but the underlying problem is the depression. So in that situation, it may not be Alzheimer's, it's actually depression that looks like dementia. In that situation, if you actually start treating depression, then the symptoms of sort of dementia can actually get better.
I mean, that's so interesting. I want to go, there's a lot of caregivers who are writing in tonight who empathize with the caregivers who are on our panel. Jennifer, let's start with you, and then let's go to Dr. Balaz, who asks, how are you managing your stress and burnout? We talked about that a little bit before, but if you can go a little deeper about how you do that balance.
Well, the other day I got a facial, which was wonderful. My girlfriend actually called me and she said, I booked a facial for you. And I said, oh my gosh, do I need it? And she said, no, you just need time for yourself. And I also wish that I exercised a little bit more, but that's really important so that you don't get burnout. But again, I go back to that community. If you have strong community, people that you can call on or rely on, it takes the burden off of you tremendously, I think.
Yeah. Let's go to Dr. Balaz. Dr. Balaz, how are you managing stress and burnout?
I'm already smiling and laughing because it's a continuous journey for me, even though I ask others to do this and in support groups. But, Jennifer brought up a good point, community, and others brought up when you don't have. And so what I can share, especially when I'm home caregiving and all of us are together, that while in one house, there's my mother, my partner, John, my nephew, Hopiel, all of us roaming around to take care of my father. All of us work. And my nephew is also autistic. So I have my father, my nephew, my mother who's aging, and my nephew who's autistic is also caregiving for his grandfather also. So we come in so many different, caregivers come in so many different ways. And so how do I take care of myself? How do any of us take care of ourselves? Keeping in contact. John goes to softball. Hopiel Clenny has a way more social life than I have had in a very long time. My mom goes to Kupuna programs at Papakalea and many other places. And for many times, though, even though there's many of us in the house, the point I'm getting to is that we don't get to really have a social life and go out. John and I, it's really hard to have a relationship when you are caring for someone 24/7. Date nights are spent usually in our room or on the patio. For me, I grew up going to the beach with my family, and I haven't been to the beach in a long time, and even when I was living at home. So we got a blow-up pool and put it on the back patio, and that became the beach to go sit in the pool and swim. And then I can still see my father. I can get up and take care of him. And so another thing about caregiving is thinking out of the box and becoming innovative. I want to do my nails. How can I take my mom to the salon if there's no one to watch my father? Well, I got to bring it to us. How are we going to go to the beach? How are we going to watch a movie? John puts up a screen on the back patio so that we can go to the movies. You know, there's so many things that we have to think of and do. And so those are the little moments of taking care of ourselves, going to watch Netflix for 5 minutes. And sometimes for caregivers, you know, you only have a few minutes. And I would tell caregivers or my caregivers to please write down what you can do in blocks of time, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, and look at that list when you have the time. Because us caregivers, you give us some time, we have no idea what to do with it. And then we waste our time trying to figure out what to do with the time that we have. So if you have a list ready and you know what you can do for an hour, a whole entire day, and it cannot be running errands and it cannot be doing chores, you can take a look at that list and you can do it right away.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's actually a good reminder for all of us who are busy, and it seems like we all are. Dr. Fujikami, can you answer this one? We read about different cases, this is someone who wrote in, of someone with Alzheimer's getting their memory back in small moments, and you mentioned the music there. Something that triggers it, whether it's a name, a smell, or a song. Have you experienced this? Is there something that works, and why is this important to kind of re-trigger that memory?
Right, that's a great question. And I think I kind of liken the brain to space. There's so much that we don't know. It's such an amazing organ. But we do know that as the short-term memory progresses in patients with dementia, the remote memory is still there. Memories of their childhood, memories of their favorite, music group, memories of when they were working with other people. That is still there. That essence of that person is still there. So trying to find ways to trigger that memory, whether it's through, again, playing music from that generation, old photographs, things like that can sometimes help trigger some of the better moments of the more lucid moments of this disease. A lot of times we just don't know, but we just, like someone mentioned, you just have to, just keep a grasp on the good days. There will be good days and bad days, but just hold on to the good days.
Mm-hmm. Tani, Hawaii's aging population is growing pretty fast. We've talked about that throughout the program. What is the state doing to make sure there are enough trained professionals? I mean, we hear about the doctor shortage, the nursing shortage. Kathy mentioned that there could potentially be a shortage of beds in this area. Is there more that can be done on a policy level to make sure that we have enough trained professionals to take care of our needs?
That's right. The population is growing, and with that, we need to grow our workforce and build our capacity. We're working on coordinating a coalition of stakeholders across the state. We are working to implement state strategic plan strategies, things like workforce development, training our workforce to build our dementia capacity. A lot of times when we, go through our training programs, dementia might be a small part of our training, but we're hoping to increase that. And Alzheimer's Association is doing a great job of leading the advocacy, I think we need everybody on board at every level, whether it's at a state level, public-private partnerships, at a community level with community health centers, and even in our neighborhoods and families. It's going to take all of us to really care for this population as we grow.
Dr. Haynes, as the state looks to grow programs like what she's talking about and resources, what could make you think the biggest difference for rural communities specifically?
That's a really good question, and capacity building is what resonates with me. Looking at what the needs are, assessing. Every community is different, yeah. So, what we need on the Big Island might be different than what the needs are on Maui. So those needs assessments at a community level are, I think, really important. And growing our own in the healthcare field, creating a pipeline where kids that are interested in healthcare professions or service professions or social health professions can get exposure to the service work that we do. and nurturing that in our local kids. You know, so many of us go away to the mainland to get education and experience, but we really need to be coming back and providing the services in the community. So I think that pipeline is really important, providing opportunities for exposure and education and training here at home, so we can take care of our kupuna.
Yeah, Kealii, would you like to add to that?
I just want to expand on it that the state is actually in that regard, I think, doing a really good job. So the DOE, University of Hawaii, the care providers have gotten together and looked at an approach where some of the high schools now have academies that prepare our young people to actually go in the healthcare profession. So that's relatively new, and so that program, I think, is just a wonderful way. And even if they don't take that as a career, they're ready to take care of mom and dad, right? Or grandma, or their spouse. So there's that program, and it's tied into the university. The other thing is that Hawaii, I think, was the first state with Governor Green to create a HELP. It's called HELP, H-E-L-P, and it's a loan program for healthcare people who want to go into the healthcare career. And it's a loan, or instead you can work in a rural community and have it paid off that way. So in that sense, Hawaii's doing well. We just need more people to want to get into that profession, knowing, sadly, that if you get into the healthcare profession, you're going to be employed for a really long time. So it's a good career to get into. It's just a beautiful way to help families be able to care for their loved ones. I love that Pokiʻi talked about the beautiful moments. We didn't get to talk about that. I have two sisters who live in the mainland. I mean, one in the mainland, one in Hilo. My twin and I were the ones here primarily caring for our mom. The other two were jealous. Not, so they weren't like, oh, wow, you poor things, you're having to take care of mom. They're like, gosh, you get to be with her all the time. So there's that. But so I just wanted to add, Hawaii's actually doing pretty good. I just wanted to add to what, if anybody else has more on that,
LJ,
those
if
programs.
you would build on that, what you think that what in the short term can be done from a policy level. We talked a little bit about supporting caregivers through family leave. I know that that's something that the legislature will be debating, and I'm sure we'll do a whole insights on that. But when you look at the landscape of what the resources, because there are limited resources, where do you think those can best be put to help people right now?
Well, and I think, as Tani had mentioned, the state has convened stakeholders to really come up with a strategic plan to better get a handle on this public health crisis, right? But we need to hear more from caregivers. So caregivers need to call on us and other stakeholders so that we know, or we have the data that would support better policies, because every community, like Dr. Haynes had mentioned, is different. What may work for Oahu may not work for Hawaii Island or Maui or Kauai. And so encouraging caregivers to share their experiences and their challenges with us and other stakeholders like AARP, so that we can make better policy decisions, or at least support policies that our legislators can take a look at. I think, just to add, we're fortunate to have Tani, who's leading this front for the state. And it's just been a pleasure working with you.
Likewise.
Dr. Nakagawa, I want to go from policy to the personal. We talked about diet, exercise, brain teasers, all of those aspects. But one of the things when I was exploring the Bihari website was architecture and the environment. How can the environment influence or delay the onset of Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so we know someone with severe dementia, Alzheimer's dementia, who was agitated, just very combative. He went to Buddhist monastery for like a month and came back completely calm, more lucid, more focused, was able to come home. So that's when we realized that the environment, the way we live, the architecture really matters. Everything from the color, how much natural light exposure, how much green, biophilia, trees, so on, and also the background sound, and ability for us to have a resting state, meaning when I say resting state, like a state where we're not distracted, we can be in the Zen mode. So all those things are created when we actually have the right environment. So I do think that we need to put more thoughtful planning for how we design our housing and residential unit, even city planning, perhaps our future senior living facility. I think we need to create a design that's based on brain health. So it's going to be easier for people to do that healthy lifestyle sort of habits, and also eliminate all these triggers that can agitate people with dementia.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm really hearing throughout this conversation is that it really is the whole person, right? That your natural environment, the exercise, the diet, how much stimulation you get, it all factors in. Doctor, can you tell us, the difference you see when you look at a patient who is following that kind of model and a patient who perhaps cannot? What kind of a difference in outcomes and just quality of life you see?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's quality of life, and quality of life entails all of that. It includes community, no stress, less stress, good nutrition, safe housing, less worries. So it really encompasses all that. And I think, again, every individual is different who suffers from this disease, but yeah, mental health and having good quality of life, good sleep, really does help. I think with the behaviors that can happen from this disease. And I think also, I agree, it helps slow the progression down. So there is definitely, I do see a difference with my patients.
Okay.
I just want to, add one more thing about environment, which is the social environment. There's a lot of seniors suffer from loneliness. And if I'm a particularly social person prior to the onset of this disease, and I'm at home maybe with one single caregiver and very solitary, it might be very torturous to me. Whereas, if I'm more introverted and then suddenly I'm going to a setting where there's a lot of family members who are there, that might be kind of triggering for me. And so looking at what the social environment is for the person living with dementia and what would cater to their needs is so important. We in my care home, I see people kind of almost spring back. I recently had a gentleman who said, "Oh, my dad's, he's just kind of very quiet, and he's just going to stay in his room." But when he moved in, he suddenly just started doing all the games and activities and singing, and it's like, what happened? But it's so important to kind of look at the level of interaction that the person living with dementia has, or would match them well, and not be a trigger in a bad way, but maybe be encouraging or enabling them to be at ease and in that flow state.
Yeah, Dr. Haynes, I mean, that goes back to what you were saying about that cooking class, right? That you want to build community in ways that are exciting and creative. But also that's the challenge of a place like Hawaii Island or some of the other rural communities where the drives are long and the distances make some of that pretty difficult. Are there enough resources so that people can participate in the kind of activities that Todd's talking about?
Yeah, I think, during COVID, again, I'm going to mention COVID, we saw the resources in our community really dwindle on Hawaii Island. I think, between East and West Hawaii, there's a difference in availability and proximity just for social activities and community engagement. And so I do think that we have a ways to go in certain areas in Hawaii Island. And even in Hawaii County, there are pockets that are very, very rural, and to acknowledge the efforts that families and caregivers have to go through to, access resources, but also access opportunities for health and wellness and quality of life, is significant in certain parts of where we live. But another thing I wanted to mention in talking about, things that work is, and my husband is gonna probably shake his head at home, but, animals, that's one thing that I talk with my patients about a lot is, if the socialization and the access to socialization is difficult, there's a lot of furry family out there that, need somebody to love on them, and that unconditional reciprocation is really powerful for people. And so you'll see a lot of our community like going out and taking care of the kitties in the community, or going to the Humane Society and spending time with the animals there. And that can be a very powerful source of healing for people. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to think about. I love that. We only have a few minutes left, and I do want to make sure that we hear from our caregivers tonight. I want to go first to Dr. Balaz. Just a final message you would have for folks. I know that you and Jennifer are kind of on different sides or different ends of the spectrum on this. Jennifer is just starting out, and you had mentioned that your father is in an advanced stage. So what's your message to folks watching tonight who are just starting out on this journey, or maybe at the same place that you are?
My message to caregivers would be is, you know, from everything you're hearing tonight, that there is resources, there is a community, there is a place to go, a place to go. So don't feel stuck. Don't feel like you're alone, that we are all here. Your providers, your care team, they're with you for the entire journey, as the Alzheimer's Association, Tani, AARP, like we are, Kathy, all of us are here to be with you along the entire journey. And I'll end with, for caregivers, is as you're going through this journey with your loved one, please pay attention to the emotional truth. A lot of times, what they're feeling, the person who's living with the disease, it's coming out in other ways. So what they're saying may not always be what they're meaning or what they need. And so to try to pay attention to that emotional truth in the undertone. And that caregivers, we get isolated too. Our world shrinks. We can't go out and be with our friends. So please do self-care, take care of yourself. My mother makes homemade games, and we have, you know, one day a week we play games and have fun together. So find those little moments of joy. Enjoy the time you have left. Live, laugh, cry, and reach out to any of us when you need us. We're all here for you.
Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful message. And Jennifer will give you the last word tonight.
Oh boy, pressure. I would say for me, it would be, my message to other caregivers would be that you are the ambassador and the advocate for your family member or whoever you're caregiving for. So do your research and take the time to learn about what resources are out there, because as you see here, there's so many experts that live right here in Hawaii that we have access to. So take advantage of that and build your community.
Yeah, I know. I mean, when you mentioned your friend that had called you up to ask you to go out and have a spa day, I mean, I think it's an important reminder for all of us that maybe you don't necessarily, maybe you're not a caregiver yourself, but certainly we all know one. I mean, what kind of a difference does that make when someone is caregiving for the caregiver?
Exactly. It means so much. And I think that they don't have to, it's just little things, you know, like I can text LJ and say, I'm having a bad day. And he's like, you got this, you can do it. And just little things of encouragement like that make a huge difference.
Thank you so much for sharing that tonight. Mahalo to all of our guests and to you at home for being part of tonight's town hall. As we mentioned earlier, we do have a list of the resources on our website at pbshawaii.org, and we encourage you to go and visit that website. We'll be back in February with another KΑKOU exploring sports concussions. Once thought to be just part of contact sports, concussions are now a growing concern for people of all ages, from young athletes to veterans, even those in everyday accidents. The impact of a concussion can last far beyond the field. We'll discuss the dangers of these brain injuries and what we can do to protect our keiki, kupuna, and everyone in between. Until then, I'm Yanji Denise. Take care of yourself. Good night and aloha.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Local broadcasts of KΑKOU are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo. And by